Have you ever heard of a well being buried below the surface? Before we get into it though, leave a comment below. What kind of well do you have at your house? Do you have a drilled well? Hand dug well? Maybe you have a flowing artesian well? Leave a comment below and let's talk about it. Well, this is an incredibly common thing that happens especially on older homes, at least in our area, before the 1960s. Nowadays, we obviously don't do that. We bring our well casings at least 8 inches above the surface, and if you're in a floodplain, at least 24. And you may be wondering, now, why on earth would they have buried it? And there's no real good answer for it beyond it was just easier to have it below the surface so you didn't have to worry about hitting it with the mower or having it be unsightly. And some of the thought process was that by having it buried with the proper lid, bacteria and other contaminants are less likely to get into the system. Unlike a hand dug well where it's just a big vat in the ground allowing whatever to work its way into the system. The same issue kind of applies to septic systems. Septic systems, they would leave those things buried all the time too, especially back in the day. Nowadays, you can't really do that, but the rules have changed. Today, what we're gonna look at is a well in a well pit. And you might be wondering, what is that? A well pit is a cavity underground where the well is placed. So let's take a look. If we look right here, we can actually see the well pit is gonna have a manhole cover. So we have to pop this off so we can see what's inside. Well, looks like we got 2 covers under here. So let's go ahead and see what we got under this side. And there we go. So as we can see inside of here, we have our well pit. The well is going to be this circular looking device in the middle. The well tank is that blue part right over here. As you can see, we're in a vault. The issue with having a well in a well pit like this, or a well vault, is there's nothing really stopping surface water from getting in there. As you can see, the well is up above the ground, and the lid is in place. But the problem is basically how these lids work. It's basically like a moon pie. You got steel plate, rubber, steel plate, and you got the bolts that kind of pinch together, expanding the rubber until you create a good seal in the well casing. The well casing is the large part of the well itself. These lids are designed to make it to where things can't get into the well, but we're relying on rubber to keep all of that extra contaminants from getting into the system. The other concern is the well tank is inside of that pit. So when you have a well tank in the pit, there's ambient moisture around the well pit, which means you are going to have excessive wear and tear, rusting, on the well tank and the T-assembly, which is that little piece in the middle. The problem with this is it's going to shorten the expected lifespan of the system, which means you're ultimately going to have to replace it more often. That's not a fun place to be as a homeowner. These tanks are not cheap, so you want to do what you can to make them last as long as physically possible. Well tanks are typically in the basement of a house. It's usually somewhere in the utility room near the water heater or the furnace. The expected lifespan of a well tank is about 10 to 15 years. If you have the well tank in the pit though, you're more likely only going to get a couple years, maybe 5, 7 years at most, because it usually rots out. Your area may be different. Well pits might be exactly how you guys do it, and you may never have a problem. Over here, I'm just speaking from my experience and from what I've seen. Typically, when you have a well tank in a well pit, they don't last that long. The other thing is we typically know that those older wells are more shallow. And so when you have major construction, so for example, when farmland starts to sell, you start to see a lot more houses being built behind the property, in front of the property, left, right, etc. And the modern construction standards are going to have deeper, more productive wells, meaning these old shallow wells are probably going to dry up and you may run out of water. The primary concern for a well in a well pit is intrusion of impurities. So when you have water getting into the system. So for example, if you have a house and the downspouts are just happening to point towards the well pit, guess what? All of that rainwater from the roof can work its way into the pit. And if you don't have a sump pump in that pit or good drainage in the pit, you're going to potentially run into the risk of that pit filling with water, which can cause some issues with your electric, meaning the pressure switch, the control panel, etc. Or you can allow that water to go above the well casing, which runs the risk of it potentially getting into the well. That's why the EPA recommends to test your water at least once a year for bacteria and for nitrates. It's not that complicated, but it's very important that you do it. Just about every health department is going to have a list of approved labs in your area. So if you're trying to figure out how to get your water tested, all you have to do is go to your local county health department and query something along the lines of water testing lab, water analysis, certified samplers, something to that effect, and you'll probably find somebody who can help tell you what's going on inside of your water. Obviously, there's more than just bacteria and nitrates that can be contaminants in the water, but those are the ones that the EPA has explicitly said, hey, you as a homeowner, you need to make sure you test for these things. Having the well in a well pit is not going to inherently cause any issues for the homeowner. Typically, what we see is normal flow of water. Where the issue comes into play is typically going to be with the bacteriological and other contaminants getting into the well. Usually, we also have to worry about the pressure tank rotting out as well, and that's why I recommend putting the pressure tank in the home, extending the well casing above the surface to the 8 inches minimum or 24 if you're in floodplain, and abandoning the well pit. It's an old style of doing things. It'll still work, but you run into more of a risk of things failing prematurely and just some really avoidable simple things like bacteria that just pop up all the time inside those well pits. The problem with extending the well casing and getting rid of that well pit is cost. It's a lot more expensive than most people think it's going to be. Typically, when you tell people to do this, they see the price tag and they say, no. It's not anything crazy. I've seen this anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000, depending on who's doing it, when you're doing it, etc. But it's not that bad. That all being said, I think that it's a good idea to get rid of well pits and just extend that casing up. If it's not in your budget, I get it. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to be like that big of a problem in the grand scheme of things. You should bring it up, but there's no real urgent, like, stop everything you're doing, do it right now kind of problem. If you found this useful in any way, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have videos posted every day on the world of well and septic, and today we just so happen to be talking about well pits. Till next time, guys.